Salutations, my friends, I'm TheMightyMander, and today I want to talk about the state of Xbox as a platform, as an ecosystem, as a company in 2021 from a consumer standpoint. Obviously, I don't work at Xbox, but I have been an avid fan of Xbox pretty much since the 360 generation, and I want to talk about where they're at and like what they're doing, because Xbox is doing a lot of really cool stuff right now, and it's all just very fascinating to me as someone who kind of has an ear to the ground when it comes to the gaming industry, but you know is still relatively inexperienced when it comes to like all the inner workings of, you know, business deals and all these mergers and acquisitions and stuff like that. But I do want to start there. I want to start by talking about the recent news, which I'm sure most of you have heard about, that being Xbox's acquisition of Bethesda Game Studios' parent company, ZeniMax Media. So that includes Bethesda Game Studios and all of their subsidiaries, Arcane, id Software, Machine Games. All of that is effectively now owned by Xbox. And so that basically means that all of Bethesda's IP, Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Starfield, Wolfenstein, Doom, Evil Within, all of that stuff is now, they're all Xbox properties. They're all Xbox first-party franchises. And so basically, with one kind of stroke of a pen, Xbox basically solved their first-party IP problem. Not necessarily in the way that I expected them to, but I'll be damned if it wasn't a significant move. That was a really big shakeup in the gaming industry. And so the reason it's relevant again is because the merger has gone through. And that basically means that from this point forward, they can start, you know, making plans and really start collaborating, which I guess they weren't really able to do before for legal reasons. And so they kind of kicked this relationship off with a roundtable featuring, you know, some of the studio heads from Bethesda and Phil Spencer, head of Xbox, Aaron Greenberg, head of marketing at Xbox, and, you know, just a bunch of very recognizable faces from both of those companies. And they kind of just laid out their plans and talked about what this partnership means to both of their companies and both of their teams, and, you know, what it means for the fans going forward, right? They didn't really give any specifics, but they did talk about, Phil Spencer mentioned the exclusivity piece, which I know a lot of people have been talking about for a very long time in the games media community. So let's start there. Basically, what Phil Spencer said was that the Bethesda Xbox partnership going forward will be about bringing games to Xbox fans on platforms where Game Pass exists. He specifically used those words, platforms where Game Pass exists. As of right now, that includes Xbox consoles, PC, and like Xbox cloud gaming. And that's about it. What he means, like whether that can scale up in the future and show up on other devices, that remains to be seen. But that's kind of what that means for now. So you can kind of extrapolate on that a little bit and assume safely that, yeah, a lot of Bethesda titles in the future will be exclusive to Xbox. And a lot of people are probably understandably upset about that. You know, a lot of PlayStation fans have probably been playing Elder Scrolls and Fallout and, you know, Doom and Evil Within and Wolfenstein, all these games on PlayStation for like over a decade. So if those people are upset, I kind of understand that. I'm personally not upset because I am kind of actively involved in the Xbox ecosystem already. So if those games stop showing up on PlayStation, that's not really going to affect me all that much. But I know that there's a lot of people out there who are probably pretty upset about that news, and I can't really blame them. But at the same time, I personally find this kind of exciting because as someone who was a Bethesda fan for the longest time and then started to cool, you know, after Fallout 4 came out and once the Fallout 76 debacle started happening, basically this makes me excited for the future of Bethesda. I'm really excited for what they can do now that they've got this injection of capital from Microsoft into their budget. So like, I'm excited for the future of Fallout. I'm excited for the future of Doom, Dishonored, Wolfenstein. I think that all of these series have the potential to have a really bright future now that they're effectively first-party Xbox franchises. I still expect a little bit of like a case-by-case basis for exclusivity. I think that, you know, if a game has precedent for showing up on a PlayStation console, there is still a chance that we might see those games show up on PlayStation eventually, like, you know, the big franchises, Elder Scrolls, Fallout. I still think that there's a small chance we see those games end up on PlayStation, maybe after some sort of timed exclusivity agreement or something like that. It's obvious that the main motivation of this for Xbox was to get all these games on Game Pass, right? Like, I think it's less about locking out people on other platforms and more about just driving home the absolute value proposition of Game Pass, because right now it's kind of unbeatable. And with the addition of the next piece of news that came out of this conference, Game Pass has gotten even better. Basically, shortly after that roundtable, they announced that they were just going to start loading up Game Pass with a whole bunch of Bethesda backlog titles. A couple of them were already on there. Fallout New Vegas was on there. Fallout 76 was on there. Fallout 4 has been on there at one point or another. But they also added Dishonored Definitive Edition, Dishonored 2, Prey, which I think might have already been on there, Skyrim Special Edition, which I think has been on there at some point or another. But basically, they made this announcement, and they're like, hey, all these Bethesda games are now on Game Pass. Go have a great weekend. You know, we'll see you on Monday with some more news. And so I actually got a chance to try out some of those games because I'm in a little bit of a dry spot right now. My Borderlands obsession has kind of cooled off, and I'm waiting for Mass Effect Legendary Edition. So I was able to go back and try a lot of these Bethesda games now that they're on Game Pass. And there's a couple that I got a chance to try out that I hadn't really gotten into before, and that is the first Dishonored game with the Dishonored Definitive Edition and Fallout New Vegas. I'm a huge fan of Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, but for some reason, New Vegas had eluded me for quite a while. I think when I first became aware of it, the more intense survival aspects of the game, the survival mechanics kind of intimidated me a little bit. Now, you know, the distinction, it's like, I think it's just a more fleshed out version of Fallout 3, right? So I've been getting really into it. I've actually really been enjoying the first Dishonored game. I never really appreciated the depth of like level design and all the different options and player agency that you have in that game when approaching all the different scenarios. So really, really great stuff from Arcane there. The only Arcane game I had played previously was Prey, which I had really, really enjoyed as well. And so yeah, there was this huge drop of just all these Bethesda games onto Game Pass. But one aspect of this that I don't see a ton of people talking about is that a lot of these games are being enhanced with the new FPS Boost feature that Xbox has integrated into a lot of its games on the Series X. Dishonored Definitive Edition, Skyrim Special Edition, Fallout 4, Fallout 76, and Prey, I believe, all have this FPS Boost feature as an option now, which basically all those games on, you know, standard Xbox consoles would run at 30 frames per second. But the FPS Boost basically just cranks them right up to 60. And so now, like, any input lag with those games is gone. They're all insanely smooth, rock solid 60 frames per second with absolutely no drops. And it's incredible. It's genuinely kind of mind-blowing to me. Like as someone who has never ever been a PC enthusiast, right? I know that the experience with PC is that the more advanced your rig, the more scalable your games are. You can crank up FPS, crank up resolution, adjust FOV, all this stuff. But that's never ever been the case on the console, which is where I spend a majority of my time playing games. And now to have the option to be able to play a game like Fallout 4 in 60 frames per second, it's just really, really awesome to me because it feels like the next step in backwards compatibility, right? It's like that was a huge focus for Xbox throughout like the second half of the last console generation. The Xbox One generation was, hey, we're going to introduce huge backwards compatibility so you can play all these old Xbox 360 games and original Xbox games on your Xbox One. But the thing is the original version of the game is sometimes not optimized, you know, like a lot of 360 games still ran like they would if they were just running on a 360. They're effectively just running on a 360 emulator. But now, just the idea of backwards compatibility being scalable on a console, I feel like brings it just that much closer to parity with the PC experience. I know it's never going to be the same, but to have features like that as a console player is really, really spectacular. So I've been having an absolute blast. Like all the footage that I'm putting in this video, except for maybe the Fallout New Vegas footage if that's in here, but all of the other footage that you're seeing is all recorded on my Xbox Series X with FPS Boost enabled. So it's all just this buttery smooth 60 frames per second on games like Skyrim and Fallout 4 and Dishonored and Prey. And it makes all of these games so much more satisfying to play. I just love having that scalable experience where it's like, okay, yeah, on my new system, I can run these older games, like if I'm waiting for a new game to drop, but even better. Like it's just, it's a really, really spectacular thing that as a console player, I've never really gotten a chance to experience anything like that before. So it is like a really, really kind of underrated bit of news that's come out of this whole thing is like all these Bethesda games, hey, now they're all on Game Pass and they all run like butter and it's just great. And I thought that was going to be it for a little while, right? Awesome, great. We're going to go on a Bethesda nostalgia trip. See you guys in a few months when you have your marketing materials ready for me in June, which is I think what they said. They were going to have like like around E3 times, basically, is when they're gonna have more announcements and more stuff to show us, which is, you know, I think that's to be expected. But then they just decided out of nowhere, hey, no, we're not done with Game Pass news yet. Outriders, that game that, you know, that AAA looter shooter game that's coming out, made by Square Enix, yeah, that's coming to Game Pass as well. And it's like, dude, what the fuck? Like, it just more and more and more, they just keep adding value to this service, and it's like, it's kind of incredible. I was interested in Outriders after playing the demo, but I wasn't sure if I was like, you know, $70 worth of interested. And now, as an Xbox Game Pass subscriber, I don't have to be. And that's just really cool. So yeah, super looking forward to checking out Outriders when that comes out now, especially that I don't have that entry cost barrier, you know? So yeah, the value proposition of Game Pass is kind of crazy right now. So yeah, getting back to the main point of this, which is, you know, the state, like talking about the state of Xbox in 2021, right? And make no mistake, it's still pretty early on in the year. Like, Xbox has still got a lot of opportunities to do some real crazy shit this year. I think with this announcement, right, with these new features, the new FPS Boost and all the Bethesda games, and like the optimistic future that they're presenting, it puts Xbox in a very interesting position because it's finally starting to feel like they have footing that's like equal to their main rival, which is PlayStation, right? It finally feels like they're kind of carving their own lane out and they're not necessarily chasing after PlayStation's success, which is what it definitely felt like basically all throughout the last console generation, and arguably even the one before that with the Xbox 360 and PS3 rivalry. So it's a great time to be a fan of Xbox. If you're a Game Pass subscriber, then you've got a lot of really, really great stuff to play. So I just really, really love what Xbox is doing right now, and I kind of wanted to just share my thoughts on this, right? From a player's point of view, from someone who actively really loves video games, this is exciting. Just because it just means more video games. It means more cool games in the future. It means more cool games that you can play right now with more great features and, you know, better compatibility. And it's just really, really exciting. So those are my thoughts on the state of Xbox in 2021. I think they're in a really, really good spot. I think that all three of the major players in the gaming industry, that being PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo, are kind of in their own lane doing their own thing right now. And that's really, really cool to see. Like, I don't think it needs to be this bitter rivalry between all these platforms all the time. Like, I think we can just enjoy the different aspects of what these companies have to offer in terms of games. And right now, they've all got a lot of really unique stuff to offer. I'm glad that Xbox finally has its own piece of that, right? Like more so than it used to. It always had like really good social features and really good, you know, online multiplayer environments, but to now see them really, really kind of embracing the subscription model and just value, like just provide value to the subscriber. Like it's a very, very clear and very effective business model. And I'm excited to see where it goes in the future. I'm really just mostly excited to see what Bethesda has cooking up for us now that they're underneath the kind of Xbox umbrella. Like, I'm really curious as to what the next Fallout and the next Elder Scrolls will look like, and Starfield for that matter. You know, a lot of those games have already been in development, I'm sure, but I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what they're going to be able to do now. This has been my thoughts on the state of Xbox in 2021 with the Bethesda news and with the new compatibility features and just Game Pass in general. Let me know what you guys are thinking in the comments below. As always, I've been the Mighty Mander. Keep it tuned here for more games coverage. I love y'all very much, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace out, my friends.